We all know exercise is good for us. It's actually the most powerful thing you can do for your longevity right now. People who exercise regularly have up to 7 years longer life expectancy. There's no pharmaceutical or supplement as powerful as exercise. So you want to keep on doing it for as long as possible. Unfortunately, your physical fitness and function decline with age. The older people get, the less capable they usually become in terms of lifting something, running around, climbing, flexibility, etc. That's because of the age-related decline of muscle mass, power, strength and VO2 max, which all go down by about 10% per decade. In this video, I'm going to outline my evidence-based workout plan for longevity. I'm sharing with you the types of exercises linked to longevity, how much exercise is optimal to do, how much exercise is actually damaging to your health, and I'll give you a weekly workout plan that's linked to the lowest risk of mortality. So make sure you click a like and subscribe for future videos about living longer and staying healthier. Let's start with the fitness trait that's linked to the greatest longevity and lowest risk of disease. That's cardiorespiratory fitness. People with the highest cardiorespiratory fitness have been seen to have up to a 4 times lower risk of all-cause mortality compared to those with the lowest cardiorespiratory fitness. Cardiorespiratory fitness is best reflected by your VO2 max. VO2 max refers to the maximal amount of oxygen consumption during physical activity. The lowest risk of mortality is seen with a VO2 max of 49 milliliters per kilogram per minute. So for the sake of longevity, you want to keep your VO2 max above 50 milliliters per kilogram per minute for as long as possible, because remember, it declines about 10% per decade. I recently measured my VO2 max and the result was 66 milliliters per kilogram per minute, which is well above the lowest mortality risk, and it's also in the elite category of 18-year-olds. Here are the VO2 max standards for every age group, so you can see what would be a good VO2 max for your age and sex. You don't have to be in the elite category for longevity, but you do want to keep your VO2 max above 50 milliliters per kilogram per minute for as long as possible. Being above average is also not an ideal place to be, because if you're above average in your 30s, then you're going to slide to the below average group in your 40s, and then in your 50s you'll be in the low VO2 max group, which is the highest risk of mortality. So you want to be about 10 years better with your VO2 max than your chronological age to counteract the age-related decline in VO2 max in the future. To calculate your VO2 max, you need to go to a sports lab, which is the gold standard. However, you can also estimate your VO2 max based on your Cooper test performance, which is a running test where you try to run as far as possible within 12 minutes. The lowest mortality risk seen at a VO2 max of 49 milliliters per kilogram per minute would require you to run 2.7 kilometers or 1.7 miles in 12 minutes in your Cooper test. So now that we know that VO2 max is very important, how do you increase it? A 2016 meta-analysis found that training intensity had no effect on the final VO2 max scores in young healthy people, which means that both low and high intensity training can work. Higher intensity training can provide benefits at lower training durations because the intensities are greater. However, just putting more hours into exercise, whether that be high intensity exercise or low intensity cardio, the more hours you put in, the higher your VO2 max is generally going to be. High level athletes such as pro cyclists and cross-country skiers spend the majority of their training in zone 2 to increase their fat burning capacity and mitochondrial count. Zone 2 lays the foundation for your cardiorespiratory fitness by increasing the size of your engine. It increases the number of slow twitch muscle fibers and the amount of mitochondria. So up to 80% of your cardio training should ideally be in the zone 2 range. Zone 2 is a heart rate zone between 60 to 75% of your maximum heart rate. This is the fat max, after which you cross the anaerobic threshold into zone 3, which is 75 to 80% of your maximum heart rate. This is where you start to burn carbohydrates instead of fat. There are a total of 5 heart rate zones, ranging from zone 1, which is regular walking, to all out sprinting in zone 5. The higher your cardiorespiratory fitness, the faster you can exercise while still staying in zone 2. That is the key indicator of better cardiorespiratory fitness. The standard way to calculate your heart rate zones is to first find your maximum heart rate, which is 220 minus your age. So my maximum heart rate is 220 minus 29 equals 191. The zone 2 of that is between 114 to 143 heartbeats per minute. To know exactly what your heart rate zones are, you can also do the VO2 max test, and they will outline you all your heart rate zones. To directly monitor your heart rate during exercise, using a heart rate monitor strapped around your chest is the best option. You can also train without any heart rate monitors by paying attention to your breathing. If you're able to breathe through the nose, then you're probably in zone 2. because once you start breathing through the mouth, then that means that you crossed the anaerobic threshold and you're burning more carbohydrates instead of fat. So if your goal is to train zone 2 and increase the ceiling or the threshold at which you cross over into the carbohydrate burning zone, then you need to kind of train your zone 2 much longer, and in most cases actually you need to run slower, if that makes sense. About 40% of people might not respond to moderate intensity training for increasing VO2 max. However, you can overcome the poor response by either increasing training intensity, duration, type, or frequency. Just doing more might help. These hard responders do see improvements when utilizing high intensity interval training or HIIT training. HIIT protocols are usually done between 70 to 85% of one's maximum heart rate, so they're in the zone 3 to 4. The 2019 meta-analysis on 53 studies found that short intervals less than 30 seconds, low volume less than 5 minutes, and short term less than 4 weeks are an effective and time-efficient way to increase VO2 max. However, they found that to maximize VO2 max adaptations, long intervals over 2 minutes, high volume over 15 minutes, and moderate to long term over 4 to 12 weeks was better. So the more cardio you do, both intervals and regular zone 2, the higher your VO2 max is generally going to be. Let's now shift into talking about muscle, because that's also very popular online. One characteristic of physical aging is the gradual loss of skeletal muscle and its function, which is called sarcopenia. Starting already after the age of 30, sarcopenia occurs at a rate of about 3 to 8% per decade, which increases the risk of mortality. By the age of 80, you could have lost up to 30 to 50% of your lean tissue. People with higher amounts of muscle and strength have a lower risk of all-cause mortality. A 2022 meta-analysis found that sarcopenia was associated with a 100% higher risk of mortality. So, one of the goals of exercise should be to minimize and slow down sarcopenia. The criteria of sarcopenia are 1. Low muscle strength, 2. Low muscle quality or quantity, and 3. Low physical performance. The gold standard for measuring muscle mass is the DEXA scan. It measures your body composition including total fat mass, muscle mass, and bone mass. For sarcopenia, a low appendicular lean mass is indicative of sarcopenia. An appendicular lean mass below 7 kilograms per square meter, or less than 20 kilograms of total muscle mass in men, and less than 5.5 kilograms per square meter, or less than 15 kilograms of total muscle mass in women, is categorized as sarcopenia. A few months ago I did a DEXA scan and my appendicular lean mass was 8.9, which puts me into the 90th percentile of my age group. With that projection, I'm expected to stay close to the 90th percentile in my 80s, which means I have more muscle than 90% of people of my age. For muscle strength, low hand grip strength, or less than 27 kilograms in men and less than 16 kilograms in women, is indicative of sarcopenic low muscle strength. Both muscle strength and muscle mass decline with age, but which one is more important? Muscle strength is generally considered a slightly bigger predictor of longevity, especially health span, than muscle mass. You're going to lose muscle strength a lot faster than you're going to lose muscle mass, and you're going to lose the fast twitch muscle fibers significantly faster. Age-related decline in strength is disproportionately higher than the loss of muscle tissue, specifically type 2 muscle fibers, also known as the fast twitch muscle fibers, which is reversed by resistance training. So the biggest thing that you lose with age isn't muscle mass, it's actually your fast twitch muscle fibers, which you can train with speed and strength work. So how do you build muscle mass and strength? The best way to do it is with resistance training. Resistance training has been seen to reverse aging in skeletal muscle. A 2016 paper found that amongst the large cohort of 65 and older, mortality rates were 46% lower in individuals who did regular strength training compared to those who didn't. The main requirement for increasing muscle strength and muscle size is mechanical tension. Mechanical tension describes the muscles contracting at near maximum tension while lifting something, which causes the muscle fibers to strain and activate the muscle growth pathways. Mechanical tension is the biggest contributor to progressive overload, which is needed for continuous muscle growth. Progressive overload illustrates the increasing amount of stress being placed on the muscle, as well as the nervous system. You can experience progressive overload in many ways, by increasing the loads, increasing the intensity, increasing the volume, increasing the amount of sets and reps you do, as well as increasing the frequency of when you train. But the main idea is getting stronger over time. When it comes to aging, then it's obviously gonna be that you slow down the age-related decline as much as possible in your loss of strength. Both high intensity and low intensity resistance training can result in similar muscle hypertrophy as long as they're done close to muscle failure. A 2023 meta-analysis found that all resistance training protocols promoted strength and hypertrophy compared to no exercise. For strength, the most effective methods were high load training, which means just lifting heavier weights, whereas for hypertrophy, it was working out with multiple sets. It's also never too late to start exercising. Just 8 weeks of resistance training in adults adults aged 86 to 96 has been seen to increase muscle strength by 180%, muscle size by 9%, and walking speed from 48% from baseline. My main focus is on strength because I'm already with enough muscle mass, and focusing on strength will also increase my lean muscle mass. So my workouts are focused on higher loads between 70 to 90% of my 1 repetition maximum. In total, I only do about 2 to 3 exercises per workout, alternating between the push-pull leg split. I work out 3 times a week with weights. Everyone's always asking me, what do I put into my protein shake? I'll tell you exactly what. It's 30 grams of whey protein, 10 grams of collagen, and 1 teaspoon of raw cacao. I blend it up with water and ice cubes, and it becomes incredibly creamy. Whey protein is the most bioavailable protein source in the world. Many studies have found that whey protein supplementation improves muscle growth and strength when combined with resistance training. Whey protein stimulates muscle protein synthesis 31% more than soy protein and 132% more than casein after resistance training. Whey protein also promotes glutathione production, which is the body's main antioxidant that supports immunity. The brand of whey protein I use, NoordCode, has pure organic whey from grass-fed cows from the Alps. It's the highest quality and cleanest whey protein in the world. I combine it with the NoordCode Complete Collagen that has added glycine, which is beneficial for joints and skin health. NoordCode also has organic raw cacao with lion's mane and chaga extracts, which improves cardiovascular health and energy. All of this for only 250 calories, over 30 grams of protein to maximize protein synthesis, and 10 grams of collagen for skin anti-aging benefits. If you're allergic to dairy, then NoordCode also has plant-based protein powder made from pea, hemp seed, and rice protein with added MCTs and maca. You can get a 10% discount by using the code Siim10 at livehealthy.com/collections/NoordCode. Next, let's talk about how much exercise should you do. The Physical Activity Guidelines Advisory Committee has outlined the physical activity guidelines for Americans. Adults should get at least 150 to 300 minutes of moderate exercise per week, or 75 to 150 minutes per week of vigorous aerobic exercise. They should also aim for at least twice a week of resistance training. However, that's only the bare minimal requirement, and it doesn't fully reduce the risk. Exercising more than that is actually linked to better health outcomes and lower risk of mortality. A 2020 study found that the lowest risk of mortality was at 150 to 300 minutes per week of leisurely vigorous physical activity, 300 to 600 minutes per week of leisurely moderate physical activity, or a combination of both. So the general guidelines for physical activity significantly undershoot what would be optimal for maximum risk reduction for longevity. However, there can certainly be too much exercise. It's been found that exercise follows a J-shaped curve, with zero or low amounts of exercise being associated with increased risk. But too much exercise over 10 hours is also associated with greater risk. A 2023 systematic review found that the more moderate physical activity, the lower your all-cause mortality risk. It even outperformed vigorous activity at high levels, minus 17% at 650 minutes per week versus minus 35% at 900 minutes per week. With respect to cardiovascular disease mortality, the more moderate physical activity, the lower the risk, minus 40% at 900 minutes per week. For vigorous physical activity, the benefits were maximized at 150 to 200 minutes per week, and that gave minus 15% in the risk of cardiovascular disease mortality. After that, there was a reduction in the benefits. But even exercising 900 minutes per week of vigorous exercise was associated with lower risk of cardiovascular disease mortality than not exercising at all. The takeaway is that you don't get progressively more benefits the more high intensity and vigorous exercise you do. The benefits of vigorous exercise tend to plateau around 150 to 200 minutes per week. But the same isn't the case with moderate physical activity. The more moderate physical activity you do, the lower your risk of all-cause mortality and the lower your risk of cardiovascular disease mortality as well. You can do up to 1,000 minutes of moderate physical activity and still see greater risk reduction compared to doing 200 or 100 minutes of moderate physical activity. The takeaway for me and how I adjusted my own workout routine based on this data is that instead of adding extra high-intensity workouts into my week, I actually added extra moderate intensity exercise routines into my week because those give you greater risk reduction. So here's how my own weekly workout plan generally looks like, and it's based on the recent data about what's optimal for the lowest risk of mortality and greater longevity. First, my goal is to keep my VO2 max above 50 milliliters per kilogram per minute, well into my 60s and 70s. Right now it's 66, so I have a good head start. For that, I train zone 2 cardio 2 to 3 times a week for 45 minutes each. It's a very easygoing tempo and low heart rate zone. Then I do the 4x4 high intensity interval workout. It's 4 minutes of maximum effort followed by 4 minutes of zone 2 or walking, repeated for 4 rounds. So in total it's 35 minutes. Second, my goal is to keep my appendicular lean mass index above 8 to stay in the 90th percentile with respect to muscle mass. Right now it's 8.9, and if I maintain the 90th percentile projection, then I'm going to be able to stay above 8, well into my 60s and 70s. Third, my goal is to maintain my strength as much as possible. Based on the data, you don't need to be elite in terms of your muscle strength, but you certainly have to be above average and the intermediate strength group. For that, I'm going to do resistance training 3 times per week for 45 minutes each. I focus on the big compound lifts that are most effective for strength development. I also incorporate a few explosive exercises to maintain the fast twitch muscle fibers, but I'm also training them during the high intensity intervals. And lastly, I'm also walking every day for at least 12,000 steps, which is about 2 hours per day, to increase my weekly moderate physical activity. In total, I'm getting around 200 minutes of high intensity vigorous exercise per week and over 900 minutes of moderate physical activity, which is the optimal amount for lowest risk of all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease. The most important part is that I'm going to have to keep doing this for as long as possible and ideally never stop exercising. I'm obviously going to have to adjust some of the intensities and durations with age, but I don't see myself changing this routine for the next, 20 to 30 years. But me and, you also have to remember to hold yourself to a higher standard instead of a lower standard. Like you're saying, oh, I'm getting old, so I can hold myself to a lower standard. That's actually the wrong mindset, because ideally you want to keep your fitness status, 10 years younger than your chronological age, because then you're ahead of the curve. You're ahead of the age-related decline. So if you start to hold yourself to a lower standard, you're saying, okay, I'm in my 50s, so it's okay to me to have a low VO2 max, then you're in the downward slope of age-related decline, and actually you're going to start to decline much faster because of that. So hold your fitness status to a higher standard and ideally strive for a fitness status that is 10 years younger than your chronological age. If you want to learn more about the most optimal ways to exercise, eat, track your blood work and take supplements for longevity, then join the updates list for my new upcoming book, The Longevity Leap, which will be available later this year. Head over to thelongevityleap.com and sign up for the early access. Other than that, thanks for watching this video. Make sure to click a like and subscribe for future videos about living longer and staying healthier. Other than that, thanks for watching this video. My name is Siim. Stay optimized, stay empowered.